Let's bring in Sky News US analyst Michael Ware now. Michael, good to see you. Look, we've been getting fierce condemnation coming out about this incident out of Washington, D.C. Israel's ambassador to the UN says his country's embassies around the world are on high alert. Danny Danon describing this as an attack against Israel, an attack against the Jewish community, but also an attack against the US itself.
Yeah, well, there's no other way to describe this incident as utterly heartbreaking, because whether it's an attack on Israel or an attack on the United States, at the end of the day, this was an attack on a loving young couple. They were attending this annual conference of diplomats held by the American Jewish Committee at the Heritage Museum. And while they're inside, discussing humanitarian aid, this pair of embassy aides themselves, outside was a man pacing with a 9mm pistol. And when they emerged, he shot them at point blank range virtually, and they died almost instantly. What really rips your guts out is that not only did he sound like really good kids who had nothing but messages of peace, but they were flying on Sunday to Jerusalem so that the young woman could meet the young man's family. And as the Israeli ambassador here says, he'd secretly bought an engagement ring. And at the same time, the young woman's mother was flying from Kansas to arrive on Friday to dog sit while they were away. So as the Israeli embassy in their statement today said, we were going to walk you down the aisle. Now we will walk with you to your graves. And the US government couldn't be taking this any more seriously. I mean, there's been a rise of anti-Semitic attacks here in America, and they are treating this as a federal hate crime.
Yeah, as you say, it's heartbreaking. Look, another thing that's happened in the US, South Africa's president is the latest world leader to be subjected to a televised Oval Office takedown by Donald Trump. The US president lectured Cyril Ramaphosa of what he says is a genocide against white South African farmers. Do you think that world leaders would be beginning to think an Oval Office appearance alongside President Trump may be a political risk, considering this kind of raw diplomacy playing out live on TV?
Well, you now know as a world leader walking into the Oval Office, you're at risk of a staged managed stunt, like we saw with the president of Ukraine, and we've now seen with the president of South Africa. In contrast, we just saw in Rome, the president sitting down with that same president of Ukraine in a very intimate and a very productive meeting in the Vatican City. So the Oval Office has almost become a stage for, there's no other way to describe what happened to the South African president as an ambush. He went in to talk about trade, and as soon as you hear, can you dim the lights, and the videos begin to play, it was a sneak attack, and he's been forced to address these claims of alleged white genocide. Now, no one can deny that there's attacks on farmers, and there are ongoing tensions between white and blacks in South Africa, particularly in rural areas. But quite frankly, to call it genocide takes the pail, because South African police official statistics show that white South Africans are no more vulnerable to violence and murder than black South Africans. And indeed, President Trump's own State Department during his first term said the murders of white farmers is only 0.2%. Of the South African national murder rate. And even the video was incorrect, because the line of white crosses across, on that road that President Trump said were graves were not. They were protests. So, yes, it's become quite the hot seat walking into that Oval Office.
Certainly is. Look, Michael Ware, we're out of time, but appreciate it. Thank you. We'll talk to you again soon.